Welcome to SCORE Business TV. Our sponsor today is Wells Fargo. In this series, experts share their opinions with business owners on a variety of topics. Today we are featuring a SCORE client success story and her relationship with her SCORE mentors. Our first SCORE mentor is Stroud Curran, a mentor with our Tampa chapter. Stroud is a retired CPA with his MBA from Dartmouth's Amos School of Business. Stroud has been a CFO of several small companies, and he was VP of Finance for a Fortune 500 company division. He was also a principal in a consulting firm that served long-term care providers, including nursing, assisted living, and continuing care communities. Stroud, welcome to the show. Next is Sarasota SCORE mentor Lloyd Nurick. Lloyd has a BA from Union College and an MA in Liberal Studies from Wesleyan University. As a certified association executive, Lloyd has had over 50 years of experience in government, healthcare, and trade associations. Lloyd, welcome. Our SCORE client is Alexis Wynn, owner of 3 Assisting Hands home care franchise units. We will find out more about Alexis during the show. Alexis, welcome. Please tell us about your background and how you came to the United States. I know you originally weren't born here.
Well, I have a very interesting life, indeed. I started out as basically a refugee of the Vietnam War. So my family escaped from Vietnam in the late 1979. And my professional background is I've been in healthcare all my life, in information technology as well as healthcare insurance. And then on my education side, I have an MBA, Master of Business Administration. And then on top of that, my father was a physician, so I have had a lot of exposure in the healthcare arena.
Great. And how did you come to work and own 3 franchise units with your company?
Well, we're now actually 7 franchise. So I have 7 territories altogether. Assisting Hands Home Care is a part of a franchise. We're in multiple states. And how I came about was about 6 years ago. I was in my early 40s. I had a calling from God to serve the senior care area. And then on top of that, I always have an entrepreneurial spirit about me. So by owning a business, I have the ability to create jobs and also making a difference and help those who needs us.
Okay. So you said you were in the industry before, and I recall it was in United Healthcare, is that correct?
Yes.
Okay. What did you do with them?
For healthcare, my background is building, working with Medicare and Medicaid systems, so building healthcare insurance systems. And then after that, I oversaw operation for Anthem Blue Cross Blue Shield. So I had a lot of experience, and my specialization is around utilization of benefits, how people go about utilizing the benefits that they need to access medical treatments.
Okay, and now I'm assuming that was helpful in your everyday operations of starting Assisting Hands.
It is not only looking at system as a conduit or solutions for your everyday business and transactions, and also overseeing people. So I have a lot of experience since I was 27 years old to manage people and able to execute different projects and get them done. So exposure in strategy management, but also in efficiency running operation. But then on top of that, what's important is the ability to manage other people, motivate them, get them do what they need to do to get the job done.
Okay. When you came to this country, I'm assuming you didn't speak English?
I did not. I learned English from scratch. And by way of learning English, my 3rd grade teacher assigned me a tutor, and I learned English from basically cards, cue cards.
Wow, very impressive. So what made you decide to get involved with the franchise?
So healthcare regulation is very complex, based on my experience, that the state is regulated, especially in the state of Florida. There's been a lot of fraud. State of Florida, Texas, California, highest fraudulent when it comes to accessing healthcare and billing Medicare and Medicaid. So the state of Florida is highly regulated when it comes to regulation. So what we do, although we're doing non-medical service only, it's still highly regulated. Workers are required to meet certain requirements, and policy have to be in place. We have to follow our policy.
Okay. So one more question on that. So you do was it daycare and nursing? Is that correct? Or
We take care. I strongly believe that people do well and excel well when they're at home in their most comfortable environment. So what we do is we send employees out to take care of seniors and folks with adults with disability in their very comfortable environment, which is their place of residence, and so therefore they're home.
in fact, I read on your website that 90% of seniors that are 65 and older prefer to age in their home.
That's correct. They don't want to go anywhere else. They do better. There's better infection control. So if they were to go into facility, there's a high chance that they can get an infection by other residents or other patients around them, because they're very vulnerable.
So Stroud, obviously you and Lloyd are here as mentors for Alexis. How did you get involved with, how'd you meet Alexis to begin with?
Our chapter in Tampa twice a year has an event we call Clients Meet Clients. It's a networking event. At the time, Alexis was a member of the Tampa Club where we held the event, and she and I, bumped into each other and started talking. And, her background is rather interesting. And lo and behold, she got in touch with me. We started talking with each other. She became a SCORE mentor at that time. And it sort of went from there. And that was, 4.5 years ago.
Almost 4 years.
4 years, yeah.
Wow. How about you, Lloyd?
I received a normal reference through our assignment director. And I got an email that said that there was a request for assistance, and I was assigned to work with Alexis. So I showed up at her office in, I think it was in Bradenton, wasn't it?
It was at that time.
And we started talking, and it's worked out ever since then.
Right. So Alexis, how is it working with two mentors at the same time?
Well, as you have shared with the audience about their background, each of them have a very unique background, and they're based on their expertise level. And I found great value in having different perspective based on the topics, because as a business owner and running a business, there's a lot of different perspective or different pillars in each of the, in the business that you run. Stroud has very strong background in finance, and as well as long-term. And then Lloyd has background in more of associations, more around profit sharings, incentives. So I see great value because they both bring something very unique to the table.
Yeah. It's not unusual for two mentors to work together with a client, but it's a little unusual for them to come from different markets. So one from Tampa, one from Sarasota. That's a little unusual. You meet in the middle? I mean, where do you meet? Does it vary, or do you meet somewhere in the middle?
Well, we meet monthly now,
Right.
and most of the time it's through virtual, through phone and video conferencing.
Right.
And then every other 3 months, I think we meet in person.
Right.
Yes.
What hasn't come out so far is the enormity of the size of your business and the success of building it to what's your current sales this year anticipated?
Well, we're projecting this year close to $4.4 million, and every year since Stroud and Lloyd been involved, we've been able to grow over $1 million each year,
Yeah.
and I see the trend continues.
That's fantastic.
Thank you.
So, and how many employees do you have?
We have almost 300 employees.
Oh my gosh!
Yes.
Wow.
Yeah.
And how many locations?
We have 2 offices, one in Tampa and then one here in Sarasota.
Okay. And geographically, you said, was it 7 counties you're in, or did you?
7 counties.
Yeah.
We're licensed for 7 counties. And the nature of the business is we have to make sure that employees or caregiving employees are close to their clients.
So now you started with Stroud first. And how long was it before Lloyd entered the picture?
Would you say about 2 years, Joe?
I'm not entirely
About
sure, because you you took that action on your own. I didn't suggest it. I didn't even know Lloyd at the time.
I would say maybe about
Yeah.
about right, about
Okay.
a year and a half.
And
2
Stroud,
years
how
in.
have you helped Alexis from the beginning when you first met her and you started working with her to now? How has that relationship changed?
Well, that's an interesting thing. I've always viewed this as I'm an advisor, nothing more, and from the very beginning felt that Alexis knows her business much better than I. So my role was to give advice, to listen a lot, to suggest a different emphasis from time to time, to not be overly excited if she followed it to the letter or not, to deal with the problem of the month. And the problems have been really all over the map, from a dispute with her franchisor. That was, I think, the first big issue that trying to help her evaluate the worth of her business, to employee issues, to financial issues.
Okay. And Lloyd, same question for you. So you've been working with Alexis for maybe, 3 or 4 years?
3.
Okay.
Yeah.
And from the 3 years ago to now, has that relationship changed?
I think so.
How?
Initially it was very formal, across the table type of relationship, and we've grown close. Alexis is one of a number of clients that I have, but she's the only one that gives me a hug on the way out. So it's become a special relationship. Okay. And Alexis, as you can tell from what she's already said, she is particularly bright and communicative, and she absorbs suggestions that we make. Whether she follows them is up to her, but she understands very quickly. So she's a pleasure to work with. You don't have to pound her head with information on details. She can pick up broad ideas and expand on those things. But as Stroud also said, our job is initially to listen, to hear what she has to say, what she has to ask, and then respond, because we have to understand her, our client, much better than even a consultant who does the work. We don't do the work, we make suggestions.
Sure. Well, Alexis, do you listen to them?
Yes, I do.
Okay.
They're my sound bite. There are
Okay.
times my ideas are off the chart,
Yeah.
and there are moments they have to reel me in and say, let's focus on what's now. Being an entrepreneur, you tend to have a lot of ideas, and they're great to work with. I wouldn't trade them for the world. They're classy men. They have my best interest in mind. Sound advice based on their experience and background, and I think we got to be really friends. We're able to talk about sometimes funny things, jokes, telling stories. So it's not always about business all the time.
Sure. And I know Lloyd personally, he's in our chapter and our treasurer, and he has clients that he's worked with for years, and they treat him like family. I mean, one fella had a physical issue, and Lloyd was in charge if anything happened to him to run the business. That's how good that relationship is. So Lloyd's a great guy. I don't know Stroud as well, but I hear up in Tampa he's quite an excellent mentor there as well.
Yes.
Can I add
Yes,
one
sure.
thing? Give you an example of how we have worked. One meeting within the last year, Alexis came into the meeting with me and said, I'm interested in creating some sort of structure of payments for my employees that go beyond wages. And we sat there and talked about it. And between the two of us, we developed a system. I came up with a few ideas. She went back and came up with a detailed proposal, and we worked it through.
Alexis, I understand that you've watched some of our SCORE Business TV shows.
I have.
Okay. What'd you think of them?
I have. Very nicely done. I'm able to, and I listen over because every time you listen to it, you gain something to it. there's a piece of element that I missed the first time I listened to it. And Stroud and Lloyd, they do a good job of looping it in as far as resource available from SCORE.
Okay. And how about our podcast or our business scorecard or the workshops? Do you get involved in any of that learning?
I have. I commute from Tampa down to Sarasota since we have 2 offices, and I listen to the podcast based on the subject that I need. And I have attended the workshops here as well. There's one around digital marketing that was valuable for me to understand better as far as today's marketing, how important it is to also integrate digital marketing into your marketing plan.
Well, I imagine our mentors have given you good advice over the years, and I'm going to ask them, put them on the spot and say, Stroud, what was maybe the best advice you've given Alexis in the years you've been working with her?
Well, at the risk of being self-serving here a bit, we're currently working on tightening up her financial controls to better identify her margins across all of her revenue sources. And I think this is going to be a very important juncture in her business profitability as she continues to grow.
And same for you, Lloyd.
Well, it was one incident, one moment in time. A couple of years ago, I just out of the blue asked her what her debt was and where it was. And she told me she had credit cards, bank loans, family loans, and I quickly suggested that she look at consolidating. Within a month, she had done the consolidation, and if I remember correctly, you were saving something like $3,000 a month.
That's correct.
Which, of course, is income.
Yeah.
So I'm really proud of that one.
That's great. Did Lloyd get his dividend?
He did.
Goals. Do you have goals?
We have to, especially with a growing business. If you don't have goals, you would be losing or have oversights.
What are some of your goals?
We discussed about key performance indicators. So the ongoing goal in this business is hours. Instead of counting widgets, we're counting hours. That's how we measure hours. Yes, hours work. Hours we picked up from clients, hours we work. It is a service industry, so we have to focus on getting the right workers on board to go out and provide service to our clients. And quality of care is important to us, and we want to make sure, again, that clients do not decline. They either maintain the level of independence, and sometimes we're able to improve their health. That's why we're seeing that quite a bit, and that's given me great satisfaction when we're able to do that.
And that's why you got into the business in the first place.
That's correct.
Yeah.
Yes.
On the issue of key performance indicators, I also remember back when we started talking about what you measure.
Yeah.
Do you measure time spent? Do you measure dollars? What is the real key to the organization? And it was that back and forth that gave Alexis the decision-making ability to use time. That's the key performance indicator, the single key performance indicator.
So when we look at the hours, and obviously your employees are spending time in the field with clients, with patients, and more is better than less. Do you look at the value of the hour in terms of getting more revenue per hour or decreasing cost per hour?
We do that all the time, especially right now, based on what Stroud just shared earlier regarding making sure cash flows are there, making sure that we improve on revenue, but also improve on rates. So we're looking at pricing structure related to overall financial.
Another issue that I think we're going to look at is whether or not the overhead allocation should be uniform to all revenue sources, or whether it would vary a little bit. A lot of Alexis' business is very, very competitive lower than you would hope for price points. And so the issue of refining those net margin calculations will ultimately be very important to her profitability as she grows.
Now, Lloyd has experience in association management. And Lloyd, how have you helped Alexis in that area?
Well, one of the things that Alexis is really interested in, because most of her business comes from government sources, a variety of government sources, is making those government connections. And in my background, that was my primary focus, was dealing with governmental entities. And so I would coach her on who to talk to, how to approach people. She asked me one day, should I belong to the State Association of Aging Organizations? And yeah, we figured out this would be really good connections and the ability to influence public policy, which of course turns policy into money and clients.
So let me, if I may add to that, it wasn't for Lloyd to bring up the priority around that as far as getting involved in association. I wouldn't have made a trip to meet with the executive director of the Florida Council on Aging in Florida. And what came about is the opportunity is now I'm on the board of the Florida Council on Aging. So the ability to get involved at that level of working with other board members, advocating for a seniors program in the state of Florida. So now it's becoming a public policy, it's becoming something a lot greater. The other thing is that Lloyd also encouraged me to reach out to the senators, which I was able to do. We have some challenges around receiving timely payment from the VA, and Lloyd encouraged me to reach out to the senators. I went and did that, so I met with Senator Rubio's office, and they were able to move some issues forward for me.
Wow, that's great.
Yeah.
So-
An interesting point
Yeah.
here is that I was sort of looking on this from afar, but it took Alexis about a very short period of time to get onto this. And it's one of her strengths is that when she gets focused on something, it gets done.
That's great.
Yeah.
And they're here to help you focus. So the combination is a real win-win combination. So in addition to that, what are some of the challenges that you see, and then we'll just go down the line and see what Lloyd and Stroud say.
So as a business owner, I focus on strategy, moving away from the details, day-to-day operations. And that's where Stroud and Lloyd comes in. They help me focus on the strategy part, the initiative and the priorities to move and propel the business forward. Because we're growing at a very rapid rate for a small business. And I want to make sure that whatever and where we are, we have to have the ability to catch up. So once you grow, you win contracts or awarded contracts, and then you have to make sure all your operations and all your folks follow suit. So where Lloyd and Stroud bring value is making sure that I focus on the strategy part and the initiative part.
Right.
Yes.
And Lloyd, what do you see as the biggest challenges that lie ahead?
Well, as far as Alexis goes, it's increasing her profitability, increasing her territory, making sure that she and her franchisor are on the same wavelength, because I think that at times she may be growing faster than the franchisor. And as a mentor, that's great. I'm not sure that that's the right way to go, but for Alexis and me, that's great.
How many franchise units are there total? I mean, ballpark, or owners like you?
I believe last time was like 140.
Oh, okay. So it's fairly
Yes.
large. Okay. And many of them have multiple units in terms of geography?
No, I think only a few of the owners.
Is there availability for you to expand within near your territory, contiguous territories from where you are now? Or are they all taken up?
Yes, there are. We still have a lot of opportunities. So not only grown the territory that I have,
Right.
but also expand on by adding territories. The other thing that we talked about is the scope of service. So we're looking at other scope of service that we can expand to. For example, skilled nursing. Behavioral health is big now in the state of Florida. Hospice, palliative care, also adult daycare. So services around senior that we have discussed about.
Okay.
One of the things that I do as a mentor, when I deal with my clients who are small business entrepreneurs, I have to frequently remind them, as I did with Alexis and as she just pointed out, that while they are dealing with day-to-day details, they are also CEOs of an organization. And that's important to put their feet up on the desk every day, stare out the window, and dream about strategies for the organization.
Mm-hmm.
And Stroud, what are the challenges that you see
Well,
ahead? For
Lloyd
us?
covered most of them, but there's one additional one, which is that anytime you're working in an industry that, like healthcare in particular, that's heavily regulated, you got to be prepared for the government to change its mind about every 3 years on how they do things. And some of these changes can be really earth-shaking. And that's ahead. You don't know until it happens. Right now, the country's involved in this discussion about how to deal with controlling healthcare costs. And you can probably bet that there's going to be strong government pressure to keep prices low for a long time, which gets us back to the whole profitability question and the need to be very sharp on managing margins and what have you.
And final question, other than general thoughts as far as future plans, you kind of mentioned that, I guess, new product, new revenue sources, maybe an increase in territory. Is there anything else?
One of the challenges that we are facing in the industry is there is a shortage of workers. We hire a lot of certified nursing assistants and home health aides. And that, I think we're going to experience, as this is an emerging business. People are getting older, they're aging, they're going to require and need our services. And so one of the things that we're doing internally is create job progressions for these employees. We're constantly thinking outside the box. We're reaching out churches now to help find caregivers. And then we're looking at vocational school internally. How do we get folks in, train them, and then place them out so they can assist seniors and adults with disabilities? So I think that's going to be the next big thing that we have to
Okay. And I
address.
understand you have recruiters that actually work for you that help you attract employees.
We do. We're a full benefits company, and I have 4 recruiters working for me. They're constantly talking to different potential candidates to join our organization.
So a big challenge is the turnover that you have, and that's in the industry, that's inherent to the industry. I understand it's like over 100% a year.
Well, last year the industry have gone up from 60-something% to last year to about 81%. So quite. Luckily, we have not experienced that because we treat our employees very well. We give out turkeys on Thanksgiving. We show our appreciation. We make sure that they are employed. We also have annual training so they can stay employable, if you will, where they can use, and if they choose, they can then get the promotions.
Okay. Stroud, any final thoughts?
Not really. Stay focused. With my financial hat on, I'm beating the drum for margin analysis and because it'll feed the future growth of the company.
Lloyd?
No, just that Alexis, like any good entrepreneur, works herself to the bone. I frequently get an email at 1:30 in the morning from her. Of course, I hope I'm asleep at that point, but I read it the next morning.
Yeah. So last question, how many hours do you put in a typical week?
It varies. Sometimes it's quite a lot, 100 hours a
Oh,
week. Other
okay.
time I try to scale it down when I don't have a lot of different priorities.
Okay.
So when there's priorities, urgency, I have to address them.
Okay.
When I don't have, then it's scaled down to more like 50 hours a week.
Okay. Tell your mentors that they need to help you on
Managing my hours.
delegation. Yeah. Anyway, I want to thank our guests for appearing on this episode of SCORE Business TV. I'd also like to thank our sponsor, Wells Fargo. Please tune in for our next episode. Until then, this is Dennis Inc. Thank you and have a great day.